Welcome to the Eat Your Content podcast, your home for all things food and pop culture. I am always your host, Rich Herrera. Just a reminder to follow me on socials, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, at Rich Herrera and at Eat Your Content. So a couple of program reminders before we get started. It's my 50th episode today. I didn't even
Oh
realize it until
wow.
I didn't even realize
Wow. Look at
I was
there.
preparing for the episode, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's my 50th episode, just gone in a flash.
Well,
So I've been doing
congratulations,
this.
sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I've been doing this about a year and a half, barely a year and a half now. So I got 50 episodes in. So I want to thank everybody for your support and listening and watching now that I'm on YouTube. So to celebrate the 50th episode, I launched the Eat Your Content merch store. So if you like what you hear, support the podcast, buy some merch on my merch store. I'll put the link in the comments and in the show notes. It's through TeePublic. So if you are familiar with some graphic tees, some fun little things through TeePublic. They are supplying the shirts. I supplied the logo. Each sale, I get a little bit of percentage of that. So go on to the TeePublic website and click that link and buy a shirt, buy a phone case, buy a sticker, and help support the show. Also, the Bear Season 3 drops all episodes on June 27th. I'm going to start recapping those episodes in a couple of weeks with another podcaster. So the mystery guest will be revealed in short time, but it should be fun. So with me once again for our final Top Chef recap of episode 14 is my friend, my colleague, Chef Amadeus. Welcome for the final time to recap Top Chef. Thank you so much for your time these past 14 weeks. Can you imagine that the time has flown by?
It has, and it's well to introduce, but it's been fun seeing and commentating on chefs competing because I know it's hard. It's a hard thing. Like I said through the show, that gorilla on your back, that time clock.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
time clock is it's a beast.
yeah.
So I'm happy to be here. I'm glad. I'm sad to see it come to an end. Because every week I'm like, oh, I gotta watch this, and I'm looking more intently into, the techniques, the dishes, um, some of the ingredients that they use, some of the techniques, just the whole 9 yards. And some techniques I've used before. Some I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I need to let me take a note of that one. Um, and so it's been fun. It's
Good,
been fun.
good. I'm glad you had a good time. I had a good time having you on and talking about Top Chef every week. It's one of my favorite shows, and I love getting chefs' insight about how they compete, especially if I can get former competitors of other food, competition shows on here that give that little bit of insight, that give that behind the scenes. Even though you were on a different show, a lot of the concepts are, still the same:
Yeah,
time and
it
limited
is.
ingredients and different environments.
I think that one of the things that so this is the first time I've watched Top Chef without getting bored with it. Um, yeah, I mean, just to be honest, sometimes like some of those shows, I've just gotten bored with some of the things the chefs say, some of their egos and their attitudes and stuff. I'm like, you know what? You gotta have a passion across the board. I know chefs, have these egos and everything, but sometimes you need to check those egos. It creates a not so comforting environment in the kitchen. And yeah, like I said, I'm not a fan of those chefs. And every time I meet those chefs, they're not. I don't want to do anything with them. There are some chefs that people ask me, "Hey, won't you do this with them?" Nah, I'm good. I'm good. I enjoy cooking. Cooking is fun and passionate and creative and all that ego stuff. I don't have time for that. I
Yeah,
don't have time for that stuff. So,
yeah.
but like I say, uh, hanging out with you, I've watched Top Chef, and I will be doing my first aguachile.
Aqua chili and a fritter.
Yes, my aguachile. I'll be doing my first one. When I was coming up with this idea, I was like, let me just play with this and see what happens.
Let me know. Let me know how that turns out. It should be fun. So before we get into talking about the episode, I do want to talk a little bit about my interview with Suan I had a few days ago. So I had Chef Suan on the podcast. It was a great interview, a lot of fun to talk to him and kind of get to know his background and kind of seeing the inner workings of Top Chef and things like that. But there were some things I could not include in that interview that I want to talk about today, just out of full transparency of what we talked about. So the really it was just one thing that ended up on the cutting room floor is basically how he got on the show, because I was really curious to hear how he ended up there. So as we got to talking, he was being pretty open about it, and I was asking, I was like, so you get on Top Chef. There's a prevailing theory that you were like an alternate that wasn't really supposed to be there, and before we could really get in deep into that conversation, there was a rep from Bravo that was on the call with us and stopped us and said, okay, we can't really talk about that right now. So if we could just move on and talk about his experience on Top Chef, and we don't want to talk about casting all too much. I'm like, all right, well, that's cool. That's fine. I'll cut it out of the episode. So I did, but now the series is over. So I feel safe to talk about this. I didn't sign an NDA or anything. So what I found out from Chef Sue, is that he was an alternate. He was not supposed to be on the show. He was an alternate in case something happened. So if we all remember way back in episode 1, Chef David Murphy, the self-proclaimed trash pie chef out of a pizza shop in San Francisco, came in, insulted Tom Colicchio's hats, and then was Thanos snapped out of existence. He was eliminated for bad pasta. Everybody thought, okay, well, we'll see him in Last Chance Kitchen. Did not happen. We get to Last Chance Kitchen. He's not there. Sue is there, and he has to win five top Last Chance Kitchen challenges to get into the competition. So we all know the story. So come to find out, he got called from Top Chef with very little notice to come on to the show. And like, hey, you still interested in coming to Top Chef? And he's working, right? So he's working at his restaurant, Adelina in Chicago. And he's like, yeah, I mean, I guess so. I guess I can come on. He didn't know he was going to go in through Last Chance Kitchen. He didn't know the circumstances of what was going on. So he was an alternate. He should not have been there. And I thought that was very
But
interesting.
what did I say? What did I say when David got there? It made me mad because there could have been someone else in that spot that would have done a lot better and appreciated being in that slot. He didn't appreciate being in that slot. It was a wasted slot.
Yeah.
So when Sue got in, he appreciated being in that slot. He brought his A game, he brought his chef game, he brought everything over there. But this dude David, he didn't appreciate it. He was like, "Well, I'm on Top Chef. Dude, this is first episode. There's 13 more weeks left. Don't get that ego and that chip on your shoulder at this point. It was just ridiculous. Even though he was on my team, I think he was the only person on my team that I'm glad that left the show.
Yeah. So
Because he was just too arrogant for me.
yeah, so I got to thinking after he told me that is this what if in my head. Like, what if Sue was in there from the beginning? Like, how far could he have gotten? I mean, he got into the main competition, which was great, and he made it pretty far. He made it past Restaurant Wars, and then lost. He ended up in 7th place, so not bad for having to fight his way through Last Chance Kitchen. But you got to wonder, like, how would he have done had he been in the main competition to begin with, and some of those challenges that
Right.
required a lot of creativity, like the architect challenge, the Frank Lloyd Wright challenge, and some of those. And so you got to wonder, like, how would he have done had he
I
been in there the
mean,
whole time?
he beat 5 chefs to get in.
Yeah,
So I mean, he would at least made it to the 5th round.
yeah, yeah. And I even talked to him a little bit about the Last Chance Kitchen that he got put back into after he got eliminated in the fish boil episode, and said, you got to make a dish using all the quick fire elements from the previous episodes. I said, you must have had a harder time with that because you didn't have a frame of reference because you weren't in those quick fire challenges. He's like, yeah, I
Right.
mean, I knew I had to use hops, but that's the first time I've seen hops, so it's not like I had a chance to use it before and understand what it is and how to use it. So it was just really interesting to hear him talk about his time there, how he got on there, and he was like, "Yeah, I knew something about David opted out of Last Chance Kitchen or something. That's all I know." And then that's when I got cut off from the Bravo rep. So a lot of interesting things. So you didn't get to hear that on the main interview. So if you haven't listened to the main interview, it's up now. So please go listen to that. But I thought that was really interesting, and I thought that was the case the whole time, that he was an alternate, that he shouldn't have been there to begin with. But
Right.
life happened, and the stars were aligned, and he was a fan favorite for a while. So good on him for fortune smiling on him and getting in the way he got in.
Well, like I say, he did a good job when he came in. Um, Now, wasn't he the first person to ever come in that way?
Yeah, he's the first person ever to come in through Last Chance Kitchen and get into the main competition that way versus,
Wow.
starting out, you know,
That was
like
that. Like I
like
say,
everybody else.
he came in. He came in, killing it. And I think of all the dishes he did, the for me, the most impressive one had to be the Caesar salad.
Yeah, there's an interesting story that he talks about in the interview. So if you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. But he calls that his Sue twist with that smoked Caesar salad. Because I talked to him, I was like, "What were you thinking doing a smoked Caesar salad? That's crazy." And so he tells a little bit about that. So
Well, here's the thing. I've done the grills and put a dome and smoked it, but I think his presentation was just spot on.
yeah,
The,
yeah,
pre- the It wasn't so much for me a smoked Caesar salad. It was his presentation on it. You know what I'm saying? So my
right,
hats off to him. He did a good. Like I said, I like Sue. I'm a fan of his,
yeah, me
especially the
too.
way he came through and fought through and everything like that. So yeah, like I said, if he would have came in from Jump Street, he would at least been you know sixth place, be right there in the fight, in the thick of
Yeah,
things. So
yeah,
yeah, like I say, great job.
yeah. So Chef Sue, if you happen to be listening, I hope you're listening. Thanks for being on the pod. I appreciate it. Had a lot of fun. So go check out his episode number 49. So go check that one out anywhere you get your podcasts. All right, so let's get right into the finale here. So the challenge, as with all other challenges for the finale of Top Chef, make the best four-course meal of your life. Again, just kind of a wide open challenge. Do whatever you want to do. Just cook the best four-course meal. Um, as if $250,000 depended on it. So
Yeah,
uh,
that's all. That's all.
that's all. Just 250 grand, just quarter mil. So we have a lot of guest judges sitting at the table. We have Top Chef Canada judge David Zilber, restaurateur chef Bricia Lopez, James Beard Award winner. I'm going to screw this up. Justin Pinche Chunsky. I don't know. I'm pronouncing that wrong. And Mission Star chef Carrie Nahabedian, which is somebody that Dan worked for in his early 20s and coming up in the ranks. So he had a familiar name on there. And we had a special guest judge that went unnamed, turned out to be Emerald Lagasse. So that was kind of cool. So cooking a four-course meal, it's hard to do it by yourself. So they had the last six previously eliminated chefs come on to be picked for sous chefs. So we had Laura, Kalina, Manny, Michelle, Sue, and Amanda lined up old style dodgeball pick 'em, and they drew knives. So Dan got first pick. He picked Amanda immediately.
Yeah,
Danny picked Manny. Savannah got Michelle. So that left three unpicked, and that was they decided enjoy the ship. So the real winners were the ones that didn't get picked. They were the real winners. They just got to chill and relax on a cruise ship and not have to slave away in a hot kitchen. But I love a good mini draft at the end of the season. Who would you have picked for your sous chef if you were in the finals and you drew a knife? Who out of those six would you have picked?
either Michelle or Laura. Manny, you know, he scares me.
Yeah, I thought about that for a second. I was like, why did Danny pick Manny? I because
They
he's
have that bromance going on. So
I mean, maybe, I guess, not as much as Manny had with Kevin, but I'm wondering if Danny, because as we watched the episode unfold, Danny was kind of a taskmaster in the kitchen there. He was
but you know
yeah,
what?
put him on a short
Here's the thing
leash.
though. This is what I would say. If you listen to Manny, Michelle, and Amanda, they were there for their friends, and they all said, "Yes, chef. Yes, chef." check this chef. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's where the ego stops at the door. You're here to help your friend out. It's not about you. It's about helping somebody else. Man, all three of them were like, "Yes, chef. Chef, is this how you want it? Chef, turn around, chef. Here's behind you." That's that's the that's the respect that I appreciate with some chefs
Yeah.
is they really like when I was in Haiti and we did the stars under chefs under the stars. Man, when I tell you, we had chefs from the U.S., from France, from Canada, from the Caribbean, and we all was helping each other plate our dishes, and it was just amazing. And those chefs I would continue to work with wherever they ask me to go. And they'll come here to Jacksonville. I'm working on getting them to come to Jacksonville. But that's what you need. It makes you cook a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah. I probably would have went with if it were me cooking in the final. I probably would have went with Michelle, Kalina, or Sue. I think Michelle. I think Michelle was just one bad table setting from being in the finals. Had she not had that bad turnout in the table uh, challenge where they had to plate the table, I think she would have been in the finals.
Well, here's the other thing too. With Sue, if when I know what I'm cooking, Sue would be he would be that twist to everything.
Yeah.
'Cause if you give Sue a banana, everybody like, oh, we do banana foster, we do banana this, we do banana that. Sue be like, no, what we gonna do is we gonna slice it, we gonna smoke it, we gonna grill it.
Yeah, Sue would have. I think both Sue and Colleen, I think, would have brought this kind of creative edge to it
Right. Yep.
that would make you look at something a little bit differently because they look at it differently than you do, and it could have been a completely different set of dishes. I mean, I
But
think they
that's
picked
why
the three best, but
but that's why, I enjoy working with chefs that cook different than I do. So when we plan a menu, it's a combination of everything. Like we did a dinner in Miami with Chef Patrick Thiessen, the happy hour chef. He and I did a Puerto Rican and Haitian inspired dinner. Oh, dude, it was amazing. It was yeah. So like I said, you just have to. But that's what makes each chef better when you're constantly collaborating with different chefs. It's
yeah,
totally different, and you vibe off each other and you just go from there. So, like I say, any of those chefs would have been, amazing. I think from Amanda to Laura, Sue, just all of them would have been great. Would have
yeah.
been great.
So speaking of the collaboration style, you see a diametric opposite kind of approach to this challenge with Savannah and Danny. So Danny had this very regimented, strict, like, here's my list. This is what you're going to do in this order. And Savannah was kind of more freestyling, kind of, I'm going to leave room for improv and for inspiration. Um, what style? I mean, kind of thinking about you in competition, if you were here, are you more like Danny that I need to make sure I have ABC 1, 2, 3 done this way in this order so it comes out like this, or are you more like Savannah and it's like more jazz? It's more just improvisational.
So I'm more like Savannah because what I would do is I'll put out something, I'll write everything out, I'll do the diagram, especially with my sous chef. I would put out something, and then I would collaborate with the sous chef for that open space to say, you know what, I can do this. Like when Michelle said talked about the plantain, she's like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. So your sous chef is that person that's like, that's great, but here's another way to look at it. Sue would have did the same thing. Um, this is what it is. Here's a different idea and things like that. Yeah, I love collaborating, so I would have left room for collaboration with my sous chef.
Yeah. So talk about shopping a little bit. There's one moment in the shopping trip that made my heart just drop for Dan. Dan is doing a sardine dish, so he goes
Oh
to the fish
yeah.
counter, And he's like, "Yeah, give me all your sardines." And the lady behind the counter is like, "Yeah, we'll clean them for you." Great. She cleans them and cooks them. And Dan's like, "Wait, wait, wait, no, 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 don't cook them, just clean them." And and there was no more sardines, so he had to flip. He had to pivot to snapper. I mean, your stomach must have dropped watching that, going, "Oh no!" Like that's a main component of your dish, and it's like ruined before the challenge even starts.
Well, so two things. He did the right thing and said, clean them. That's less time he got to do.
Right?
But he didn't realize that they were going to cook. Now, and let's flip the script. The seafood monger should have said, we cook them as well.
Yeah,
No, don't cook them. Just clean them. So
yeah,
like my seafood guy that I have, every time I order seafood from him, we have a conversation. How do you want them done? You want me to clean them, or do you want the bones? Or do you want the head? You see what I'm saying? So, and granted, you're not at in Wisconsin anymore, Dan. You're in the Caribbean, and they do things a little differently. You don't have your regular seafood monger, your regular meat monger, or anything like that. So I felt bad for him.
yeah. They were in Aruba, so they were on a cruise for a minute. They landed in Aruba port there, and yeah, you're not talking to your normal fish guy, so you have to kind of be maybe a little bit more specific. Say, hey, when you clean them, and that's it. Like I don't. But
That's it. That's
you're
it.
in the throes of competition, and those things kind of slip your mind. So I hated to see that, but you have to. That's all part of Top Chef. You just got to pivot, and because you
But
never know what's going
that's
to
how
happen.
it is when you're going shopping and he's so used to saying, "Hey, just let me get those sardines and clean it up for me," and that's it. And the other person in America knows not to
Yeah.
cook them.
Yeah. So we get back into the kitchen, and I alluded to Danny being kind of a taskmaster in the kitchen for this challenge, and he's telling man, he's like, I need you to go 10% faster, and Danny's filling up a pot with water, and he's like, just leave the pot there. I need you to go do something else. I was like, ooh man. So I was wondering if maybe he wanted to pick somebody like Manny that could be, I don't know. I don't want to say controlled, but that he could do that with, because I don't picture him doing that with Kalina. Like Kalina's very independent and strong. I don't think she would have put up with that. Even Laura too, to a point.
But here's the thing: it's not you. You're the sous chef now.
Sure.
You're the sous chef, and if you understand your role, it's not your dish. It's Danny's dish. So
Yeah.
you're just there to help him out. Like same thing with the melon balls. He was like, "Oh, you use the melon balls, dude."
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, Manny
so
strikes again.
right, that's why I say he's dangerous. Oh my god. But like I said, I think that um, all the sous chefs did a great job by
Yeah. Yeah.
just just being the sous chef and not trying to impart. They give little suggestions, but they didn't try to take over the menu and everything like that. So I was very happy to see the egos were checked at the door.
Yeah. So the next morning they have kind of an emotional breakfast with everybody, with the Emerald and the three judges there, and they kind of talk a little bit about what the show has meant to them throughout this season, and what their plans are, for after. And Dan wants to bring more attention to Kennedy's disease. Has no treatment or cure, so he wants to be kind of like that spokesperson for it. Danny's opening a restaurant, after Top Chef, and Savannah left her job as an executive chef to go on Top Chef. So I've talked to Top Chef alumni in the past. I've talked to Kenny Gilbert and Buddha Lowe and Sarah Bradley, and all of them had this common refrain of, even if you lose on Top Chef, you still win because of the exposure that comes with that show. I'm
Yep.
sure I'm sure Dan's going to be a great spokesperson for Kennedy's disease. I'm sure there's a nonprofit out there that's going to want to bring him on as a spokesperson. Danny's restaurant is going to get all kinds of exposure once it's open, and I'm sure Savannah, if she doesn't have a job now, I'm sure she does. She's going to have her pick of jobs, as an executive chef or a CDC at a high end restaurant, and she's going to be working somewhere. So, even you yourself haven't been on Food Network. I'm sure you have been able to use that platform to get exposure and things like that. So, looking at this this refrain of even if you lose, you still kind of win. Do you agree kind of with that statement a little bit?
Yeah, but here's the thing. I totally agree with that. But you have to. One of the things I always tell folks when they tell me they get ready to go on television or compete anything is you got to have a exit plan. So win, lose, or draw, what's your next step? What's your platform going to be? How are you going to take advantage of your 15 minutes of fame? Um, I do mine working with high school kids, um, and it's because I want to see the future of this industry blossom, and I want to see it from the different way where I saw it when I was coming up through the ranks. And so that's why I try to do dinners and invite young cooks and young chefs to come and work with me and the older chefs so they can see what a plating looks like, see what different techniques, so they can see like, wow, there's a lot more out there than what I've seen. Because me born and raised here in Jacksonville, I saw a lot of things um, on television and magazines and everything like that. But it wasn't until I moved to Seattle that I saw these things in person that I can grab and touch and go get. Versus here in Jacksonville, you got to special order things or know the right people, the right farmers. And so that's what I'm trying to do with these dinners that I'm going to be hosting here in Jacksonville is trying to get these young cooks and these and caterers and everybody to come and work in the kitchen with me and my chef friends so you can learn a different technique, a different flavor profile, so you can so it'll help elevate the food scene in Jacksonville. Because right now it needs a punch in the gut because a lot of people are doing the same thing with a different price on it. Now
Yeah.
there are some chefs out there that's killing it right now. I mean, in Jacksonville, you got Jazz Moore, you got Lewis Walker, you got Josh. I mean, there's a lot of folks out there doing some stuff. And so take that platform and use it for good and not for evil with the egos and all that good stuff, not wanting to help anybody, give people the information. A lot of chefs hold back information. You
Yeah.
ask them something, they're like, oh, no, I want to tell you that. Like, dude, really?
Yeah.
I can Google it, but come on, man, give me the hookup.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback on what you're saying there, if I see one more taco spot open, I might flip out. So I'm just saying, Jacksonville does
Here's the
not need
thing.
another
You say
taco spot.
tacos. Listen, you say tacos. If I see another barbecue place open up,
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
another barbecue place, another fried chicken place, I'm like, there's a lot, and that's my thing. Even with Southern cuisine as a whole, there's so much more that can be done when you're doing Southern cuisine. I mean, like I take scallops and I'll make a smoked corn crusted scallop, serve it on a bed of a collard greens drizzled with, a collard green oil and a carrot oil. That's as southern gets because it has collard greens, got carrots. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it just, but that's why when I'm doing these dinners with my chef friends, people can come and dine and be like, wow, that's never. Ooh, that's a little different. And the cook and the cooks and chefs that are in the kitchen with us, they get to see something different and take those techniques. We're not hiding them from you. Like I was with Sean Loving and Chef Shula in New Orleans, the two certified black, the only two black certified master chefs. And Sean told me, he said, I was working with both of them, and he walks in the kitchen. He said, hey, chef, what you doing? I said, just trying to steal me some recipes. He said, oh, no, don't steal them. We'll give them to you. And all those master chefs that I had the honor of and pleasure of working with was so open to give you information that, hey, you go, this is how you do this. Oh, here's the technique. Chef Shula, same thing, very open to help you out because he wants to grow the industry. Sean Loving. I mean, all these chefs was just like, tell me what you want, we'll give it to you.
Yeah.
And that's how I want to be because I've learned from somebody that same way.
Yeah.
So that's why I'll be hosting dinners with different chefs that's coming in town, and we're gonna do some fun things here in Jacksonville. So thank you for having me on your show, on your podcast, because they've been looking at the podcast like, okay, you got a little bit of insight on there.
Yeah, so hoping for Dan, Savannah, and Danny as they continue their journey through the culinary industry post Top Chef. That like you were saying, they don't gatekeep things, that they help educate and elevate the food industry in their respective areas. So yeah, let's talk about meal service, the four courses of their lives. Looking at the first course here, we had Dan with a tuna tartare and a ruby red grapefruit Caribbean pepper puree, garlic chips, and black garlic labna. Savannah did a saltfish fritter, sweet potato puree, pickled mussel, and habanero honey glaze. Danny did a scallop and habanero leche de tigre with breadfruit and nori tuile. They said Dan's dish was the loudest, but they couldn't differentiate between the texture of the tuna and the grapefruit. But one of the judges did like the spice. Savannah's course was a great way to start the meal. Tom thought it was a harmonious and had good spice. It was nicely balanced. Emerald thought it did a great job with the fritter. Danny's dish was beautiful, and the way he mimicked the scallop shell, and the scallops were pristine, but they were undersalted. So kind of looking at this first course, they start the race, right? Who do you think kind of won this first course? If as you were watching, we couldn't taste it, but just based on the feedback that they got, how it looked, and watching them cook it, who do you think kind of maybe won this first course to you?
I like Dan. And see, when they said they couldn't differentiate between the fish and the grapefruit. So when you sous vide something, you gotta finish it. And
Yeah,
finishing it is searing it to give it some color,
texture.
texture,
Hmm.
all those things there. So I was disappointed that he didn't do that. Danny, beautiful dish, but it's those little things that's the salt. I mean,
Yeah,
you could have did a finishing salt on that scallop shell. He could have did
yeah.
a finishing salt on that. Um, so yeah, and then Savannah, like I said, all of them was good, but I was leaning toward Dan.
Yeah. I'm thinking just kind of based on the feedback, I feel like Savannah has the early edge in this first course with what she made. I didn't hear a lot of, I don't want to say negative, but I didn't hear a lot of negative feedback from the judges with Savannah. With Dan, you heard the texture issue. With Danny, you heard the seasoning issue. So I think the early start goes to Savannah for this first course, personally to me.
Well,
Uh,
they did say that was this is how you start a meal off.
Exactly, exactly. So,
So
yeah. So let's see how the second course goes. So for the second course, Dan did a grilled snapper, braised pumpkin, and smoked snapper dashi. Savannah did a spiny lobster agnolotti, lobster broth, smoked Marcona almonds and grapes. Danny did smoked mussels with plantains and cabbage, smoked mussel mayo, and fries with herbs puree. Dan's dish was a perfect umami-ish song to seafood, according to the judges. Emerald thought it was simple but executed perfectly. Tom thought the dashi was flavorful. Unfortunately, this is where Savannah kind of tripped up. Had a great first course, but really tripped up in the second course. The pasta dough wasn't cooked right. It wasn't made right. When Kristen said, "What was your egg to flour ratio?" Something went wrong. Something
yep,
went wrong
yep.
because she thought it was dry and brittle. Tom liked the rub, but it was a little salty, and a lot of lobster flavor comes through. But Justin felt that one of the judges felt that the almonds got in the way of that pasta. They loved Danny's charred cabbage, but they found it hard to eat. Gail didn't exactly know how to kind of work her way through it. So if we're looking at winners on this one, I'm thinking uh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think Dan kind of
Yeah.
has the edge on this one. Savannah for sure, unfortunately, didn't do a great pasta. And Danny had something that was kind of a little unwieldy. What do you think?
Well, let's go back to Danny. I always tell people, and I've learned this. So I used to be a gopher when I was in Seattle. I would help out with ACF competitions, and people like, why do you want to be a gopher for these things? Because you get to hear exactly what the judges are saying. You get to see it up close and hear it. And one of the things they always talk about is it customer friendly? And Danny's dish was not customer friendly.
Yeah,
It's beautiful, but it's hard to. It's just not customer friendly.
yeah,
That's a big thing when you're doing plated dessert. I mean, plated dishes. is it customer friendly? And it's simple things like leaving the shrimp tails on the shrimp dish, stacking things and don't know, like she said, she didn't know how to attack it.
Hmm.
That's just it's just yeah. So saw that one coming, um, and it's just yeah, that's sad when you don't know how to eat something.
Yeah.
Because to think about this, they're all dressed up. So you don't want anything too sloppy that they're just gonna drop juice. You pick it up and something's gonna roll off the plate and hit the table, hit your clothes. It's those kind of things.
Right. And then how do you want the customer to eat the dish in terms of the perfect bite, right? So if you make it hard for them, they're not going to eat it in the way that you intended, and they're not going
And
to
shit,
get maybe
like
the
she said, like she said, you should have told us, gave us the instructions on how to do it.
yeah, because then you're not getting the flavor profile that you want them to have. So, yeah, make it simple. Unfortunately, Danny didn't do that one. So, I think Dan has the edge on the second course. So, if we're scoring, I'm thinking Savannah's got one, Dan's got one, right? So, let's move on to the third course. Dan did an oxtail ragu with dumplings, tomato concasse, pickles of cabbage, carrots, and scallions. Savannah did a seared grouper, ipa spice, mofongo plantains, and flying fish roe butter sauce. Danny did a spiny lobster with salsa matcha, squash, persimmon, and choza sauce. Emerald
Hmm.
thought Dan cooked the oxtail well, called it rustic. Tom thought the stew was a little sweet, but the acid worked well. Gail loved it, liked the dumplings particularly. David, one of the judges there, loved the complexity of Danny's course. Some of the table wasn't sure about the raw pumpkin. Carrie loved the squash and persimmon, but the lobster was undercooked. So that's not great. And we saw Danny having a little bit of trouble with the lobster in the kitchen. He tried to steam it, didn't work, and then they threw it in boiling water, didn't quite get it to temp. Savannah made mofongo, but it wasn't mofongo, and Tom
No.
actually called it mofongno. Tom with the dad jokes. And Kristen didn't think it was anything like mofongo. Like you got to be careful in naming something. If you're calling it
Yes,
something, it better at least resemble it.
I'm
Um,
telling you, I'm judged where we look at what you put on the menu and what it is, because all these chefs know what mofongo is.
right.
So when you say, "Oh, this is mofongo," even if it's not traditional mofongo, it got to be somewhere in the ballpark.
Yeah. And clearly it wasn't.
Yeah,
Clearly it
clearly.
wasn't. So again, Savannah had kind of a hard time there, and then Danny with undercooked proteins, which at the finals can't be doing that at the finals. So again, if we're looking at who won course by course, I'm thinking Dan won the third course. Do you
Well,
do
hold
you
on.
agree with that one?
So, so here's the other thing too. Remember, I told you Manny is dangerous. Manny, he when he did the lobster, it was raw. When he went to go check it, it was raw. So now that's when Danny had to pivot to like, you know what? Just bring some water to a boil, and we're throwing it for about a minute and a half. Those are the kind of things that throw you off, not for that course, but for the rest of the courses.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you really got to know how to, you know, once you serve the plate, move on without overthinking the next dish. So
Yeah.
yeah, um, yeah, like I said, that whole course there was interesting.
Yeah. The third
Um,
course was rough, I think, for all three of them. But I think Dan had the best out of the three, just kind of listening to the feedback. I mean, undercooked proteins is rough. You can't be doing that. So
yeah,
we'll see. So the fourth course is our dessert course. So we had Dan. He did a yogurt mousse, coriander olive oil, grilled pineapple, and salted phyllo crisp. Savannah did a hummingbird banana upside down cake, lime and pineapple granita, rum coconut sauce. Danny did a paraga con leche, melon sorbet, avocado toast, and candied seaweed. Pulling out this candied seaweed, that was boss. I mean, that
I
was
told. Listen, what did I say? Some things I was like, let me put that on my to do list. That was nice.
that was a slick move. That was a Danny move right there, and a condensed milk stamp there at the end. So Danny's dish brought elements of the sea beautifully, said one of the judges. Emerald thinks the seaweed added just what it needed. Gail thought the sorbet was great with the nuts and the seaweed. Kristen called it the perfect end to his progression. Carrie thought the pineapple and creaminess of Dan's dessert was well done. The other judges appreciated the use of the basil. Tom loved the flavor and thought the use of the phyllo was clever. And Emerald liked the flavor of the pineapple and rum in Savannah's cake, and the sauce complemented it really well. Tom loved the salinity in the sorbet, and one of the other judges called it kind-hearted. I don't understand that feedback, but I love hummingbird cake. So when I saw Savannah made a hummingbird cake, I was kind of intrigued because I love hummingbird cake. I don't see it a lot on menus, and it's delicious. This pineapple, really super moist cake, it's traditional in the South. So I think in the fourth course, a lot of them really kind of pivoted from that third course and did really really well. What was your take on this final course here?
Presentation was well. The creativity on these, all three of these was really really nice, really really nice. So it seemed like on the third course there was not too many negative things about either of the dishes. So that made it harder to see who was gonna win. Because at this point, I'm like, Dan did a woof.
Yeah,
Dan did his thing.
yeah.
Um, I knew it was gonna be between Dan and Danny since Savannah royally messed up her pasta dish.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think Savannah got she didn't really face nobody really face planted, but I think Savannah got way too much criticism for her to be the winner. So I think immediately she's out. Unfortunately, she
Right.
had a heck of a run running up to the finals, but I think once that's whatever happened in that 6 weeks, didn't quite get her groove back for this two-part finale. So I think it was safe when I was watching it in real time. I was like, okay, I think it's safe to say Savannah's not going to win. So it's really between Danny and Dan,
Yep.
and thinking about, okay, who made some critical mistakes, who really showed some creativity there at the end. Um, so let's kind of talk about judges table for just a second. Um, there's a lot of highs and lows. I think though Danny had the worst critique with the undercooked lobster and um, the unseasoned scallop. Uh, Dan's worst critique was that he had a weird texture on his tuna dish.
I
So
know. That's why I was like, it gotta be.
it's got to be Dan, right?
It
You were
gotta
watching
be
this, right?
Dan.
You watch the edit. I'm watching the edit, and I'm thinking back to the previous episodes. Dan was really featured a lot, so I feel like he got, like, quote unquote, the winner's edit. What they talk about, the winner's edit in these reality TV competition shows. So you're being led to believe that Dan's winning this thing, and then they named Danny as the winner. So Danny's
I,
Top
I,
Chef.
I was I was shocked that Danny won because he did undercooked lobster.
Yeah, so I gotta wonder, like, the winner of Top Chef had underseasoned scallops and undercooked proteins. I'm kind of dumbfounded. Hey, I'm glad for Danny. He said he's the first. Well, they said that he's the first Puerto Rican, Dominican, Muslim Top Chef. He won a total of $303,000 on top. So he won the quarter of a million plus all of his quick fire winnings. So a total of 303,000. He's the biggest money winner in Top Chef. But man, I gotta wonder the way they edited it and the way that it looked and the critique that he got. I mean, I got to wonder, was candied seaweed that much of a winner to overlook undercooked proteins and undersalted scallops? Did we get the right winner? Did we get the right
I
winner is
don't
what I'm
think so.
asking.
I think Dan should have won that.
I'm going to agree with you. I really think
And keep in
Dan should
mind,
have won this thing.
Dan was not on my team. Dan was on your team.
Yeah,
But I thought Dan. I was literally like, oh, Dan got this. When
yeah,
when he put up when Savannah did her pasta and Danny did the lobster, I'm like, Dan got this.
you're right.
Dan, come on, Dan. Dan. I was disappointed.
I mean, I was watching too. I was like, nobody's going to win with undercooked lobster. No, nobody's going to win with undercooked lobster, and he won with undercooked lobster. I mean,
And under seasoned scallops is
and
like, oh,
underseasoned scallops. So that's two. Again, the edit. What was shown is that he was critiqued more than Dan. So I don't know if the point of that was to create some sort of false sense of suspense. Maybe there was more negative critiques on Dan that wasn't shown. I don't know. But the way it made it look was like, okay, Dan's going to win this thing because, man, you just do not undercook lobster in the
but here's
finale.
my listen. This is one of the reasons why I stopped watching Top Chef. Yeah, I'm telling you, if it wasn't for you bringing me back into the fold, no, seriously, if it wasn't for you bringing me back to literally watch Top Chef, I wouldn't have watched it. I would have glanced, saw a couple of clips or whatever. Like you say, Danny, you had uncooked protein and you won. How is that? So that means you were the best of the worst. Then does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, and what really, I mean, look, I love Top Chef in general, and I'm predisposed to like Top Chef, even underwhelming seasons like season 21. It's kind of like the Marvel movies. I'm a big Marvel movie fan, love them, but everything after Endgame has kind of been lower in quality, but I still like them. I'm still gonna watch it. I'm still gonna go to the movie theater and watch. I'm still gonna flip on Disney Plus and watch the latest Marvel show. I'm still gonna turn on Top Chef and I'm still gonna watch it. And the reason why I feel like I'm being kind of hard on Top Chef this season is because I love it and I want to see it continue to succeed. And after this the run of seasons they had from LA to World All Stars, they were on a streak. And everybody knew this was kind of a reset season with a new host coming in and coming off of World All Stars, and kind of getting back to the regular format. The judging this season has been really muddled. I don't know
Yeah.
why Danny won, right? And the way that the judges talk through the judges table, I still don't know why they picked Danny to win. And I think they need to make that a lot more clear in future seasons. Like, this is why you won. You won because your candied seaweed, while your lobster was undercooked, that candied seaweed came out of left field. It showed a level of creativity that, was unseen, throughout this season.
Hitherto undreamt of.
Did you seriously just say hitherto undreamt of?
Whatever, but it was very, we don't know. Why did you pick, why was Danny the winner and why did Dan not win? We understood why Savannah lost. We heard a lot of the critique
Right,
around
right, right.
Savannah, but between Danny and Dan, the judging was, again, it was just really muddled. So I'm hoping for next year they see kind of the feedback from the fans and kind of watch it back and go, yeah, we really need to make it clear for the viewers because they're not seeing everything that ended up on the cutting room floor, and really justify why Undercooked Lobster won Top Chef.
Well, that's like we talked about the quick fires. You tell me the quick fires matter, but then when you go to eliminate somebody, it didn't matter.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, dude, you have a rule, but you when you go to the judges table, you throw the rule out,
yeah,
and it's like, and like I say, I'm a fan of everybody on the panel. Tom, I'm a fan of Tom's. Just everybody on the panel. I just think that there needs to be more more focus on on what you're saying. So if you're saying that you know the quick fire matters in your final channel in the elimination challenge, then to go ahead and do that. But some of the things they were like they messed up on their on that quick fire, and you telling me that now? So yeah,
yeah.
I don't know. They did good on quick fire, and you think you're there at the bottom? Come on, it's just yeah. But
So,
like I said, this season, this is the first time I watched every episode for it's been a long time since I've seen every episode of Top Chef.
welcome
Um,
back. Welcome back to the fold.
well, I don't know, and like I say, I love Calicchio's his demeanor in the kitchen and then now I've always watched Last Chance Kitchen though. I still like that because
Yeah,
I'm that kind of a guy that like just throw me in the
30
fire
minutes
and
done.
yeah, it just let me cook. I'm that guy, so that's why Last Chance Kitchen was good. But like I say, Tom is like I said, I'm a fan of everybody on there, but I just don't see Danny winning that with unse no his scallops with no salt and the lobster that was undercooked.
Yeah, yeah. So some final thoughts for me on this season. So my wish list for next year, on the off chance that anybody that makes Top Chef is listening to my podcast, on the very long chances that they're doing that. A couple of things on my wish list: quick fire, no immunities. No immunities. I want every challenge to matter. So I think we can get rid of immunities and it'd make a much more compelling show. Because one thing that I don't like seeing, and you haven't seen it much in the later seasons, but you have seen it in some, they get immunity and they just kind of phone it in the elimination challenge and don't really do anything. I want everybody cooking their best. So no
Right.
immunity. Uh, Make the quick fires all money challenges or give them some sort of advantage in the elimination challenge. No immunity there, but don't make them matter, make them not matter, whatever. Give them a prize. Sure, I love the quick fires. Let's do that. So get rid of this convoluted quick fire process. Those three things, I think if they do that, I think it'll make a much better season. And we kind of beat up on Top Chef a little bit this season, talking about the underwhelming cookery overall, some of the muddled judging. But one thing that was right was Kristen Kish. Kristen Kish was great in her first season out, watching it all the way through, all 14 episodes. I mean, she walked into this as if she's always been there. So I didn't miss Padma, right? And I think that's the biggest compliment that you can give when Padma's been on the show for as long as she has, and you have a new host stepping in. There's always like, are they going to measure up? But I think Kristen was the perfect choice, and I think her career overall kind of led her to this moment of hosting Top Chef, coming full circle in her career. But she was great. I thought she was excellent. Again, I didn't necessarily miss Padma. She just came in, stepped into that hosting role, and was brought a lot of joy and a lot of levity to really an average season. So, what about you? Any final thoughts about this season?
The host, I mean, like I said, I was a fan of hers. Now, on her show, I watched her show because I was a fan of hers.
Yeah,
I watched her, and I've watched her grow from that young chef to now with all her shows, her travels, the exotic places and things like that. And so for her to come back and do this show, it's complete full circle. She even said Emerald judged her, and when she was on, the whole 9 yards, and for her to say those illustrious words, it was she got choked up about it, and I can understand that. I really can.
yeah,
So I can I many blessings to her and continued success on what she's doing. Um, I just hope that next season that there's more passion in their cooking. Like Tom said, it's like, cooking 101, like some culinary student trying to impress somebody. I want more of the architect cooking when they nailed it and banged it out real nice. So yeah, like I said, it's just like I said, my first time watching every season since I want to say since the host was on there, and yeah, like I said, I'm you got me in here, sir. I know I hit you over like, man, dude, let's do this. I'll do it. I'll do it. And I didn't know what to expect from the show, from Top Chef, from doing the podcast with you, what your inputs would be, what your take was on going to be, and I hope that I brought enough information and spotlighted a couple of things that people can be like, wow, never thought about it in that particular way. Like the way that I'm pushing for female chefs to go, step out and do their thing. By all means, it's crazy. And like I said, these female chefs, it's a boys club. So every time I see a female chef that is rocking it out there, I'm on board. And one of my favorite female chefs from Top Chef is Tiffany Deary.
hmm
Big fan of hers. She's killing it right now, and I'm always a big fan of hers. So yeah, like I said, it was this was interesting to do. I appreciate being your co-host. Um, yeah, this was nice.
yeah. Yeah. So one final thought with the season that I was just thinking about is if there's any casting producers watching, more Sues, more Savannahs, less Davids. So let's just leave it at
A
that.
lot less Davids, please, because like I said before, when David was doing his thing, I said, I feel bad for the person that's like, I almost made it, but they got him. I was
So let's
like, Jesus.
yeah. And that's a lot saying he was gone in the first episode to say less David. Less David. So
Yeah, he was gone, not just gone. He was gone.
yeah. All right, so let's take one last look at our draft point update. So the season finale point differential is a little bit different. If you make the finale, if your chef makes a finale, you get 15 points. So Dan and Savannah and Danny all generated 15 points each for us. So you got 30 points for Savannah and Danny, and then I got 15. And then winning top chef, Danny got 30. So you won. I'm just I'm not even gonna say the score.
But here's the thing though. I promise you, I was like, holy crap, Dan's gonna win this. And I said, Rich is gonna be like, I told you.
So
I
this
was
is
rooting for Dan to win just for you, sir.
well, even if he did win, I was mathematically out of it anyway. So this is my Monopoly flipping table moment. I don't even want to talk about the score. It was like 200 something to 60 something. I just stopped. I just
But
stopped
here's the
counting.
thing though, if but you said the only way that you get a real satisfaction if Dan won, and I was pulling for Dan. I'm telling you, I had no idea Daniel. I could have sworn when he said undercooked lobster and unseasoned scallop, I said Dan got this.
I know. I was the same way. I was like, yeah, Dan's got it. Dan's got it. And I was
I
like,
was
nope.
dude, I was rooting for. I was like, Dan won this. Dan because like I say, Savannah, I love her to death, but she messed the pasta up. So Dan was like the obvious choice, but they said Danny, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a shocker there at the end, but so you
Anyway,
won the inaugural Top Chef draft, and so congratulations, you wiped the floor with me. It was a pretty convincing win. So good job there.
so let me ask you this, sir: are you gonna do this again with the points?
Yeah, I would love to do this again next year.
I think the point system for me, I got more. I didn't get more into the points. I got more into watching the competition because I kept telling you, I'm not concerned about the points because we can get eliminated and all that stuff there. So you brought me back into watching chefs do their thing, and I appreciate you for that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was a fun 14 weeks covering this with you and talking about all the different ins and outs of the show and the chefs and techniques and things like that. So, one final time, want to roll out the red carpet for you. What do you got going on in the next couple of weeks that people should be tuned into, or maybe can catch you out in the wild?
Yes. So follow me on Instagram at Chef Amadeus. Um, and my website is chefamadeus.net. But always follow me on Instagram. So I have a couple of dinners that are coming up, classes. Going to be doing grilling and wine tastings. They'll be coming up. So follow me on Instagram. Facebook is fans of Chef Amadeus. Check me out over there. And yeah, follow me on social media and get all the good stuff going on.
Awesome, awesome. Look forward to seeing what you got going on there. Don't forget to follow me on socials at Rich Herrera and at Eat Your Content on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and also check out the merch store. So check out the link in the show notes. Check out the merch store. Buy a shirt, buy a pillow or something, and support the podcast. This thing doesn't make any money, so I'd appreciate the help along the way. But Chef, thank you so much for being on the pod these last 14 weeks. Had a ton of fun. Look forward to working with you again in the future.
Look forward as well.